Can you hear Yamez, guys? Hello. I know this is not the face you were expecting. Hi, everybody. I haven't got the notification yet. Okay, I have, a voice in my head at the moment. And I can't see the chat at the moment because I haven't pulled it up yet, so... They can see, yes. Okay, cool. Now I've pulled up the chat now, so... Yay! Hello, everyone. How are we? Yep. Dogbone. John Brunel. So can you guys can't hear Yamez at the moment? No audio from Yamez. Okay, so we confirm no audio from you. So cool. Yeah, so Yamez is going to be the little face in the corner above me, and the voice in my head. So how are we all this morning? I'm woefully underprepared for this because Yamez only ran into this audio issue like 30 minutes ago. So I'm jumping in with no plan. So 5 inches of snow. I'm deadly jealous of you because we're about to have 2 40-degree days back to back, which is Celsius, of course, like 108, 110 Fahrenheit. So yeah, I mean, I know that I've heard snow is a big pain. I've never actually seen snow in person, so no, I could talk the back end off a donkey, mate. I can talk underwater. So yeah, like I said to Yamez, we don't need a topic. I'll just wing it because after like how long is it now? Almost 100 episodes of the Forgecast. I should be able to bullshit my way through things. Ah, thanks, James. Yeah. Mr. Coffee, how are we going? Hello, Stefan. Mule Cake. Yeah, no, thank you guys for hanging out on that last stream. It was good fun. I have yet to make the video. I will, promise. Yeah, well, it's at a weird time for you guys in the States. I understand that. I can't do it at night when it would be morning for you guys because it's too late. And I can't do it too early in the morning either. Like 9 o'clock is kind of my limit because that's as long as I need to wake up before I'm capable of forging. um, most streams start off with me very bleary-eyed because I've only woken up about 3 minutes ago. Coffee and donuts in the stream, indeed. I'll be eating frozen watermelon with chicks. Well, unfortunately, I can't eat frozen watermelon, but I do have frozen Zupa Dupas, which are amazing. Zupa Dupas are basically an icicle that are flavored. Yeah, pretty much something like that. Yeah. No, 40 degrees Celsius is pretty standard for Australia this summer. We had a nice little run of a couple of days, which were nice and cool, but now we're back to 40 degrees and above, which really sucks. But that's life. Popsicles, yeah, they're basically popsicles. They just don't have the stick. So yeah, how are you all doing today? Yamez is typing some things over the screen. Hanging from the roof. Oh, nice. Yeah. Jalapeno jelly. Ooh. Morning, North Country Forge. How we going? Yeah, it's live. Yeah. Yeah, it's typing live. It's kind of cool. I like it. It's almost like a teleprompter. Just don't type anything up inappropriately, otherwise, bad things will happen. That's it. Yeah, so 10 degrees Celsius. I hate you, James. Like, not really, but I hate you. You get what I mean. Have we already discussed my new amble? No, we haven't discussed my amble. I'm not sure where I want to go with this stream, given that I'm not on my platform, so I don't want to talk too much about stuff that isn't related to this platform. So, yeah, I get that, but it's not a me stream. It's not it's not Samtown Central. I'm not using this as my opportunity to advertise my work. Uh, yeah, that's it. I mean, short story is that I have a new anvil. If you guys haven't seen it, I made a video on making the stand, which caused a lot of contention in the community, which I might come back to in a bit. But it is an 80 kilogram double horn anvil with a forging shelf. I'm kind of still working out how much I like it with the shelf. Like, I love the anvil itself, but the shelf is a different thing. Today has sucked. We got the announcement from our government that we had to go into full lockdown because there's been a couple of cases of COVID. The London strain, which is like more transmissible. So we're going into full lockdown for 5 days to hopefully kill it before it starts spreading, which sucks, but it also makes sense. And to top it all off, unfortunately, someone busted into the back of my car this afternoon, which really, really sucked. So there's all of that. That's what's happening in the world of Sam right now. One little piece of like self promo I will do is tomorrow I'll be holding an auction for one of my pieces to help me pay for the damage to my car, because unfortunately I'm in a position where I don't have the money saved up for it. So hopefully that's okay to put out there, Yamas. But yeah, so that's the only thing. It'll be on my Instagram if you're interested in having a look. It'll be the Japanese fusion buoy. Anyway, yeah, Yama's audio. It's not so much his audio tools, like it's not the hardware, it's the software. OBS is playing games with him today, and he doesn't know what's going on. So I'm here. You get to listen to me for an hour, which aren't you lucky? Is there a way to know if steel will work okay for hammers? I have motor shaft from a deep well, and wondering if it would work. Yeah, Yamez will be able to read your chat, and he'll be answering in the chat and stuff like that. My channel name is Samtown's Bladesmith. So my name, which is in the bottom corner of the screen, and then comma Bladesmith. I'll type something so you can see me. There you go. There I am. So if you want to check my channel out, go free for it. But after the stream, because this is Yamez's stuff. This is the community. This is Forge Church. So steel work with hammers. So with hammer steels, you want them to be hardenable. So I would suggest cutting a slice off the end of that, like a really thin slice. I'm talking maybe a maximum 1/8 of an inch. Maybe forge it out into a little stick and then heat it up to bright orange and quench it in water. If it gets hard, so you put it in a vise and snap it, if it hardens, then you're pretty good for a hammer. Like that's basically all you need to know. It doesn't need to harden to the level of a knife. So if it does snap, but it takes a lot of force, that's good. If it just bends, then you're probably looking at mild steel. But yeah, the big thing is at the end of the day, if you can make hammers out of 1084, you can make hammers out of W2. That comes down to the tempering rather than the actual steel, rather than the actual hardness. Quiet? Am I quiet? Or okay, they're talking about you being quiet. Jesus. Okay, all right. I'm gonna turn off my alerts because I get messages all night. This is one of the things about having a majority American audience as an Australian, is that all of my interactions happen over the time I'm asleep. Yeah, if you want to make a soft hammer or a hardened hammer, then obviously if you want to make a soft hammer, then make it out of mild steel or copper, bronze. I've seen many different options of that. Mr. Toombs, I see you there. Ben Strickland, Daniel Crawford, hello. So yeah, hopefully that helps. Test your materials. If it tests okay, then use it. The big one is if you're using like a spark test, you can do it with an angle grinder, just hit some sparks off it. If it's mild steel, the sparks will be long and not have a lot of flowery bits. If it's high carbon, then it'll be short sparks with lots of flowers. That's a very rough way of doing it, but the best way to do it is to cut a piece off and heat treat it. So, what about hammer out of S or H series? So water quench for testing, yes, because it's the most aggressive form of testing. So if it's something like 1045 or 4140 or something like that, which is on the low end of the scale, then water will guarantee you to harden it. Hey Ned, how you going? Hey Aimless. So water is always the one I go to. I'm not trying to heat treat it properly. I'm trying to get it to harden. If it'll harden in water, it'll harden in oil as well, probably in certain aspects. What is I mean the SRH series question? They're air hardening steels, and it's really hard to get an air hardening steel to not embrittle in a struck tool or a striking tool. So I wouldn't necessarily recommend it. I have heard of people using Atlantic 33, which is a water quenching steel, I believe, for hammers. But yeah, I wouldn't recommend it, mainly because air hardening steels are such a pain in the butt to work with when it comes to heat treatment. So yeah, I don't know why you would bother. There's so many. There would so many better steels for it. Normalized but not quenched or tempered 4140. Then you're looking at mild steel, basically. It'll be relatively soft. Yamas, does it hurt to have chat like the rest of us? Yeah, that's all right. You can direct me if need be. Yeah, Yamez is dicking with the feng shui of the of the screen. Uh, so yeah, good morning, Soggy Bottom. How you going? Morning, BC. Dwayne, how are we? I say shut him down. Man, it's up to Yamez whether or not I get shut down. So, are there any going to be any blade shows in Australia? So, the big problem is that we've got um, COVID outbreaks going on at the moment in multiple major cities right now. We've had one case in WA here in Perth that's now turned into something like 5 cases through contact. And we're shutting down completely so that hopefully those 5 cases are the only ones we get and we can stop the flow before it even gets anywhere. Oh, we've got to hit the like button. But the problem with that is that our government tends to be pretty touchy on the subject of border crossings. So it may be that they shut down the border. At the moment, there are 3 shows planned for Australia, so we'll see what happens. Perth Knife Show is due for June 11th to 13th. So hopefully it will go ahead because I've already booked my table, or I've already put my interest out for the table. So hopefully it will go ahead because I'm looking forward to getting back to doing shows. But I have to trust that they've got my best interests at heart, and I'd rather not get sick. Uh, yes, like and share. Make sure to hit the like button, like that smoosh button, and smoosh that like button. I don't say it as well as Yamez does, but at least you can see him. Like at least he's there. I'm pointing at the wrong corner. Yeah, he's right there. He's waving. Yeah, so hopefully you guys are all having a good one. So I wanted to discuss a little bit of mounting anvils because I've had a bit of an interesting time with my most recent video on mounting anvils, and Yamez and I were discussing the possibility of talking about steel or tools or something like that. Um, Today I say better than Yamez apparently. I doubt that. He can still say it in my ear. Uh, but one of the big ideas that's come to me with from other people about anvils is that for some reason people believe that steel stands are either too loud or too rigid. I don't get that. Most of the time it's too loud, but if you guys watched the video that I made, I know that you can't always trust the audio from a video, but you probably heard that the anvil quiets quite a bit when I bolt it to the ground, and then I bolt the thing to the anvil stand itself with the rubber in between the feet and the ground and the anvil and the stand. And no, I didn't fill the legs with sand and oil because it's angle iron, it's not tube. It's 10 millimeter thick, so 3/8 inch thick wall, 90 by 90, which is, oh man, don't make me do math. Math is like 3 3/4 inches. Yeah, 3 3/4 inches angle iron. Yeah, so and yeah, so it's really quiet. Like it's actually not that loud. I used it without hearing protection on my next video, which is coming out on Wednesday, and it was fine. All right. Yeah, and this is the thing is I think there is a little bit of traditionalism going on. It's something that we've discussed on these streams before, is people clinging to things that they're familiar with. In this case, we're talking about, historically speaking, it has been fairly common for you to see an anvil mounted to wood or mounted in like a sand-filled tub. But realistically, if done properly, a steel stand will, or what's available, a steel stand will outperform, not so much outperform, but it will perform just as well as its other counterparts. In my workshop specifically, I had that really big wood stand, which was very heavy. The stand itself was heavier than the anvil on my old anvil, but you notice that that still walked around my shop because I couldn't bolt it to the floor. Now, I could have put some like little angle flanges and bolted that to the ground, but at the end of the day, one of the main advantages of the steel stand is it's literally bolted to the floor of my anvil, the floor of my shop. And so the mass under the anvil isn't just the mass of the legs, it's the mass of the entire concrete pad below it. So there are like 8 tons of concrete underneath my anvil. And so, yeah, the rebound's great. Yeah, right. So lead hold downs and stuff like that is a really good idea. Sorry, I'm repeating that for people who can't hear you. But yeah, having mobility is important in some cases. Like that's why I didn't bolt down my old anvil, but I decided that mobility is less important than having a solid anvil. And honestly, after bolting my anvil down, I cannot believe that I hadn't done it before. Um, One of the big things I've noticed is that I can use the horns without the anvil tipping all over the place, which is really nice. Um, but yeah, so at the end of the day, whatever works for you. Like realistically, I know that a lot of people are speaking from experience when they say that anvil stands are too loud when they're made out of steel. It's because they're not properly mounted, or they're not bolted down, or the legs aren't filled with oil and sand or something like that, or they're just not built of suitable steel. Like I use 3/8 thick, 90 by 90 um, angle iron because it's beefy. Like the stand itself weighs about the same as the anvil, and the anvil's 80 kilos. So it's one of those things that if you haven't seen the proper thing, then it's going to hurt you. I actually made the kind of allegory of, if you've only ever eaten poorly made meatloaf, then you'll think that meatloaf is crap. But then if you actually had a decent meatloaf made by someone who was actually good at it, you would like meatloaf. So it's not necessarily that meatloaf is the problem. It's not necessarily that steel stands are the problem. It's that your experience with crap steel stands is the problem. I'm just, yeah, well, I'll have to try it one day when I come over. Yamez is offering to make me meatloaf. Or that's the way I interpreted it. That's it. Hello, Dana. Hello, Matt. Hello, Eric. Hello, Metal Blueberries. How you going? Made my famous cheeseburger bacon meatloaf. That sounds nice. Sounds awesome. Yeah, so that's basically as far as I'm willing to go on the whole anvil stand issue. It's something that kind of stuck in my craw for a little while. I'm getting past it. The meatloaf tension was epic. Oh yeah. Well, you probably can. Yeah. But yeah, so Yama's just saying the anvil stands are an important issue because they're something that we don't discuss a lot of. There's like a very specific thing that we're all supposed to just do, and then having any kind of progression in that area is, kind of frowned upon. But it is an important issue, and anvil height is important as well. Actually, that's something that I had Alex from Valhalla Ironworks help me with on this anvil stand build. $10 super chat from James Jones. Thank you very much, sir. I know that Yamez appreciates it, and this community appreciates you keeping these kinds of things going. But yeah, it doesn't really matter what you're mounting your anvil to. If it's solid and it's stable, then normally that's enough. Then you come into arguments about height. Now, for my new anvil, I actually mounted it about a half-inch lower. It doesn't sound like a lot. Half-inch really doesn't sound like a lot. But that went from touching my knuckles when resting to a half-inch below my knuckles when resting. Why did I do that? Now, the big problem is that I am actually I use my Blacksmiths third hand quite a bit recently, and I was having a problem of the anvil face being about a half-inch too high, so that every piece that I was sitting on the anvil face, if this is the anvil face, was sitting like that. And so if you try and hammer on the end of that, what that's doing is kicking up the end, which when it's sitting under your metal blueberries, is gonna tickle just a little bit. So I decided that that little bit of that half-inch drop, and I've tested it on my new anvil now, is it lays perfectly flat, which is perfect. It is great for my use of my third hand, and I haven't noticed a significant difference in the amount of bending over I do to get down to the anvil face. So, that half-inch of change has made a huge difference, and that's why I'm really glad that I had Alex to do the AutoCAD drawing for me so that I could get the lengths right, because I had no idea what I was doing. Hey Curtis, how are we going? For those of you who have just joined the chat, Yamez can't talk. It's written up there. It's mostly because of a software issue on his end. So I am doing all of the talking, and Yamez is doing all of the looking pretty. No, nothing. Oh. How to say the coffee pot still isn't ready? Well, dude, that's why you have a whistle on one, isn't it? Yes. So, how many of you tried out Alex's little challenge over the weekend? I'm not sure how many of you saw it on Instagram. The Dice for Alex challenge, forging dice. I highly recommend it. Now, it's one of those things where this isn't necessarily about, getting word out for Alex or anything like that. This is more about, trying new things, and that's why Alex did it. That's why Alex made this thing a thing. Uh, Try forging a cube. Like, just try forging a cube. I started stupid and tried to forge a cube that was only 12 millimeters or half inch cubed, and that was really painful. So yeah, it's definitely there you go. Cubes, dice. Nice. Oh, there you go. Well, yeah, you already had them ready. Um, I actually have mine sitting behind me. My Damascus dice is my Damascus dice is actually less than 3/8 of an inch cubed. It's quite small, and it is also Damascus. And then I have my favorite one, which is wrought iron, which you guys won't be able to see the detail in this crappy camera, but yeah, this is some really gnarly wrought iron that I could not forge into anything else than this, because trying to manipulate it past this point would just fray it to hell. But yeah, forging dice is one of those things that I never thought I would do, but it's definitely fun and it's definitely challenging. So if you're looking for a fun challenge, make some dice because it's hard. Yamas go half screen. I can't see. I don't. Yes. So yeah, it's one of those things that the other forms of D6. Well, I made a different form of D6. This is a method of making a D6 that isn't a cube. It's literally hexagonal. And I actually forged this out of some 4140 round because I was wanting to see if I could freehand forge hex stock. So I did. And then I ended up using my hex wedge. It's still a D6, even though it's got 8 sides. These sides are rounded so that even if it did land on that side, it will just fall over onto one of the flat faces. So you don't have to make a D6 a cube. Gonna wait for the weather to calm down. Fair enough. Oh yeah, and that's the thing. Like I love the whole idea of challenges. I don't always get to join them, and it's why the Forgecast has the Forgecast Challenge of the Month. Um, we don't necessarily want you to do all of them, or like we want you to do all of them, but we don't necessarily need you to do all of them. It's more of a conversation piece. It's more of a skill tester. Um, we always try and encourage people to try new things, make new stuff. Last month's was a friction folder, which is something that a lot of people may not have done. And that's one of the things that I really like about this community. One of the great things that happened when I was first establishing myself in this community was that we had like the Mank Tank challenge and uh, various other challenges that I can't put my finger on right now. I really loved John Switzer's job on the 150 millimeter challenge. So yeah. Hey Ignis, how you going? Yes, it's me. I'm doing all the talking for the show today. Poor you guys. Because you're so unused to listening to my voice. Yamez is being a mime, because his computer hates him, so he can't talk. Is there a list of the Forgecast challenge? No, there isn't. Not publicly. I should go back and make one. I should do that. Yeah, I'm thinking I'm gonna have to because I did promise myself, and I think I mentioned it on the Forgecast that I would do each and every one of them one day. I've done a few of them, but I need to catch up on a couple. I'm currently working on the Forgecast challenge of last month, which is a bit late, but I'll get it. Just look down. Yeah, I'm just looking at the chat. Sorry, guys. Yeah, it's a super important part of things. Like one of the things I found with my engraving, and I found with YouTube as well. See you later, BC. One of the things I've found is that as you go, you make new tools, and those tools become part of your repertoire. So I started out in engraving with 3 engravers, um, and then I've now got 30, and I need like 50 more. So it's one of those things where you kind of start with the very bare minimum, and as you come to a new challenge, you build something to fix that. And that's where I try not to find workarounds if I can. So like if I need a specific shape of chisel or size of chisel, I'll just make that chisel, and then it stays in my collection, and I may not use it for a couple of months, but then when I need it, and it's great because it's there, and I don't have to make another one. All right, I'm getting dictated to by Yamas. Ooh, custom claw hammer, nice. So you got to make a custom drift. Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, right. Yeah. So yeah, Yamez was just saying that he got a custom order for a claw hammer that looks like a blacksmith's hammer, which is an interesting idea on its own, but it's being made to fit a very specific handle from something that was handed down. So in order to fit that handle, he's gonna have to make a custom drift to fit that, and then after that, he'll have the drift to make hammer eye holes in the future, which is a perfect example. I had exactly the same experience when I made that Tomahawk, which I did the engraving on, which some of you may have seen on my Instagram and stuff like that. See you later, Dana. Um, anyway, the that job required that it fit cold steel replacement handles because he wanted it to be rehandleable in the field, or rehandleable because he was going to use it for throwing and stuff like that. And handles break when you throw axes; it just happens. So he ended up asking me to make a custom drift for it, and I couldn't purchase one of the custom drifts from over in the US, so I made a custom drift for myself, and now I have a drift that can fit cold steel tomahawk handles, which is useful because I may make more tomahawks in the future, where I probably will. I have a bunch of hex hawks to make for Perth Knife Show if it ends up going ahead, and hammers, and whatever hammers don't sell there, I'll sell on my Etsy. Go help us. See ya, Chewy. Yeah. Well, and that's it. Like, and one of the big things is, so Yamez was saying that if you make a tool to make a custom mortar, it's not necessarily a single-use tool. Um, I made a riveting set, right? Like a 15 mil rivet head set for 10 mil rivets, for one very specific job, and now I use it for all of my tongs. Um, I need to make some jigs for making scissors. Now, originally it was only supposed to be one set of scissors, and maybe if I was only making that one set of scissors, I wouldn't make a jig. But now I'm of the mindset that I should make those tools, because after I've made that first one, I might decide that I want to make more. 41 in the chat. That's nice. Yeah, I've got the same 41. Hello, everyone. Make sure to like that smoosh button and smoosh that like button. I have a hammerhead that was fitted for a fiberglass handle. The hole is much smaller. Should I try to use a drift to change it? It depends on much smaller, like what is much smaller, because Like there is a chance that you could, yeah, there is a chance that you could ruin the temper. Um, the like some store bought handles, like some store bought steels aren't heat treatable at home. Some of them just aren't worth it. Especially if they've got a fitted fiberglass handle. Some of them suck. So yeah, definitely something to look at, but I'm not necessarily of the opinion that you should. Most wooden hammer handles will actually hold up to quite a bit of abuse, even in very small profiles. Um, thanks, Josh. Um, current hole is probably an inch smaller diameter. How? Yep. Right. Yeah, no, I'm just saying that like an inch smaller in diameter is like my hammer handles aren't even an inch wide. Like my hammer eye holes aren't an inch wide. Yeah, that's about the same as mine. But that means that if it was an inch smaller in diameter, like even in the oval, you'd have an eighth of an inch hole. So I think there's a little bit of a miscommunication there. No, you're not the only one, Zachary. Yamez has audio issues. He can't actually talk right now. I'm doing all the voice work, which is why you might notice that I go silent occasionally. It's because I'm listening to Yamez talking to me. Um, yeah. Gee, thanks, Ben. Yeah, that's dirty-minded. Someone ban Ben from the chat. Just do it. He's not benefiting us in any way. Benefiting us. Haha. But yeah, so most of the time I just say rehandle it. Like a lot of the fiberglass handled hammers that I've bought over the years, I've ended up just drilling out the fiberglass and replacing it with wood, and I've had no problems. Um, your wish came true. Kavilix, hello. But yeah, so I would say just rehaft it and go for it. And if you find that it is an issue and the head breaks off because it's too thin, then maybe it's time to look at redrifting it or maybe just getting a different hammer because sometimes hammers just aren't worth saving. Um, yeah, yeah, especially if you don't know the steel. Hmm, yeah. Um, and that's the thing. Like Giannis was just saying that there are some hammers that are case hardened at the factories, and there are a lot of them that are fiberglass handled are case hardened because it's cheaper. They can mass manufacture the amount of cheap mild steel, case harden them in a quick heat treating process, and then they've got a usable hammer that doesn't last very long, but it does the job. But that means that if you were to heat it up to drift it, then the case hardening would go away because normally case hardening is only about a millimeter deep, and the decarburization is going to take that out. So you wouldn't actually be benefiting yourself, and you'd spend a lot of energy for a mild steel hammer. I mean, it could make for a good. You could you could have a decent troll hammer after that. Like you could drift it out and turn it into your favorite guillotine tool hammer. There's no reason to get bent out of shape. Actually, funnily enough, that's my brother's name, Ben Towns. Bent. And I used to give him crap about. I still give him crap about it to this day. Oh no, hit me, baby. Hit me with those measurements. That's what I live for. Measures about an inch and a quarter, which is perfect. Yeah, inch and a quarter would be 32 mil. Yeah, roughly. Yeah, and that's so is half an inch. Wow, that's thin. Yeah, yeah. A lot of French crossbeams, a lot of the original French crossbeams, if you bought one from that is an original antique, are very narrow and long slots. And I've had a couple of people contact me asking, "Is this okay for use?" And yeah, it's fine. An inch and a quarter long slot, even half an inch wide, is going to be fine. So yeah, yeah. The impact's going through the long angle. Like, you're not hitting sideways with the hammer unless you're, I don't know, uncoordinated. I'm not going to say what I was originally thinking. Uh, oh yeah, we all have. We've all hit sideways with the hammer when we shouldn't have, but we do. Yeah, soft faced striking hammers for top tools is a really good idea. I have specific hammers for that as well. Hammer in the dial holes. If the cable is small, for the cable. Can't use the system, fit the hammerhead underneath and leave it locked by the largest thickness of the cable at the top. I'm not sure I'm reading that right. Minate. Yeah. I get that. I'm just not sure, like, maybe it's a mistranslation of cable. Bought a hammer of the diameter hole for the handle is small, and I cannot use this system to fit the hammerhead underneath and leave it locked by the larger thickness of the cable at the top. With the handle at the top. So you're talking about like doing like a Tomahawk style handle where the handle fits through the top and goes and like wedges against the top. That's what I'm imagining here. But please correct me if I'm wrong. Cable must be in hand. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking, James. Yeah, well, that's not always a guaranteed, Eric. They're not always guaranteed to be case hardened. Some of them are hardenable steel. Some companies just cheap out on the fiberglass. It's just a generic. It's like a general thing. Just rehaft it. Like, don't bother about reforging it. Just rehaft it. Um, and you'll find out over time whether or not it's case hardened or not. And I speak English. Try by Google Translator. Okay. Google Translate's terrible for that kind of thing. Um, bought some handle top tools, flatter hot cut and fuel handle drifts. The only time I've ever seen it, but the handle holes were made with the rectangular, not oval drift. Yeah, so that's actually quite traditional throughout Europe and in Japan. Japanese people love rectangular hammer eyes, and it's something that I actually want to try in my shop is to make a couple of triangular drift eyes. Actually, quite commonly, you'd see up down here, you'd see French pattern crossbeams like this with rectangular eyes. Like I was saying earlier, they tend to be very long and very thin. Um, so rectangular eyes is something that's quite cool. It makes it interesting. It makes it great for fitting up, but it actually doesn't make it good for mass production. All right, Zach, thank you very much for hanging out. Would a Tomahawk style handle work for a hammer? Yes, but um, so yeah. Well, the big problem would be that the constant hammering would eventually work it loose. Now, with a tomahawk, you end up getting handle loosening over time, because the handle is designed to be easily removable and replaced in tomahawks, so that you can replace them on the go. You'd normally have like a batch of them, and as you're throwing it or using it in the field, you bring a spare handle along just in case the handle breaks. With a hammer, the constant hammering would cause that hammerhead to wobble back and forth on the wood, which would chew the wood out, so that you'd end up having a head that wiggled. Even if it fit, it would wiggle in place. and that would mean that you would never actually get a decent hammer strike out of it. You could try, but that's not a not a guarantee. I wouldn't do it. Yep. Yeah. So, yeah. So the way Yamez is interpreted is the same way I did. Is that we're talking about coming in the same way for Morante's question. Um, the best way to describe it is that most hammer eyes have an hourglass shape, so they're tapered both from the bottom and from the top, and so therefore you'll want to fit from the bottom to a shoulder. So you'll want to shave the wood down to fit the hole from the bottom, slide it in, and you'll want to have a kerf, a cut down the middle of the section that's going through the hammer eye. And then you drive a wedge into that. And what that does is you have tapered shoulders, which sit down on the shoulder of the handle. And then when you drive that wedge into the main portion, it spreads it out and fills the other cavity, the upper V of the cavity, to fix it in place, and that's the best way to hammer it. That's the best way to handle a hammer. When the hammer handle is thicker at the top, I can fit the hammerhead under the handle, so naturally locks with them. Okay, yeah. So that tend to throw the hammerhead down the handle. Yeah. So you're talking about like a tomahawk style handle. The issue with tomahawk style handles for hammers is that they have to taper backwards. You can't have a hammer handle that flares out at the back end, and that means that you're more likely to have the hammer work its way out of your hand rather than the head work its way off the end of the hammer. So being able to have a flared end on your hammer handle means that you're going to less likely to break it. And also, it means that your handle has to be thinner than the eye itself, which, if the eye is very small, that means a very, very thin handle. So well, pretty much all hammers that I've ever witnessed have a hourglass shaped eye designed specifically for through the bottom wedged handle fits rather than tomahawk style handle fits. And the steel edge. Yeah, forging the wood. Yeah. So BLO is boiled linseed oil. Um, and yeah, Yamez was referring back to one of the episodes we did on YouTube. Oh, sorry, Forgecast, Spotify, iTunes, that kind of place. Where basically you want the fit in when you do the wedging to mushroom the material over the edges of the hammer eye. And then the best way, over the top of the hammer eye. And then the best way to fix that in place is to soak some hardening substance into it. Boiled linseed oil is a perfect example. Normally, I use a 50-50 mix of turpentine with boiled linseed oil, which thins it out a little bit, which means it soaks into the wood a bit faster. And I'll normally soak it in there overnight for 24 hours there roughly. And that really gets that into the pores. And what that does is then once the BLO shrinks and dries, it doesn't shrink, it dries. Once it dries, it actually locks those pieces in place. It locks the fibers in place. And it's less likely you're going to end up having to chip the wood off in order to get the head off. So it's a really good way to do things. Yes, and James makes a very good point. Sprinkle Donut makes a very good point. Is that boiled linseed oil is very flammable. If you have used rags, either burn them or stick them in a jar of water. Yeah, I just stick them. I just stick them in my gas forge. They make a pretty fire for a little while. My top tools don't have wedges, but a long wood section for tapping me back on. Yeah, so most handled top tools will not be wedged in place because the whole idea is you want the handle to be loose so that the force isn't directly transferred to the handle. You'll notice in like steel handled top tools, they'll be wrapped loosely or they'll be like, threaded through and wrapped. But they still rattle, and the reason for that is because you don't want the vibrational force of the impact being transferred up the handle to your hand. So it's better to have a handle that is slightly loose and the head has to be re-tapped on a few times than otherwise. Yamez is being my sign interpreter for those who are hard of sight. Yeah, spontaneous combustion BLO actually happens more often than we think. Yeah, that's exactly what we're talking about, Morante. If the problem is if the hammerhead is small, the hole is small, then the handle will be thin, bad to hold. That's why I'm saying most or pretty much all hammers are designed for a fit like we were talking about. I'm sorry, I'm just going back through the chat because I missed a bunch. Throw the hammer at the handle. Yeah, okay, cool. Loose hammerhead to the Macarena. No worries, Morante. We're always here to help. Yeah, and that's why I like having people ask questions, is because normally it's a question that either we haven't thought to ask or we want to ask but we don't want to ask because it might feel like we sound stupid. But there's no such thing as a stupid question. But yeah, so I have a small bucket for boiled linseed oil and my mix of boiled linseed oil and turpentine, and it has a lid, and basically the lid comes off, the hammer goes in, it stays like that for 24 hours, and then that's it. Yeah, yeah. You only need like 2 inches of boiled linseed oil on the bottom. You don't need the full thing filled. Only if you ask 4 times and do it your way. That makes you an asshole, as Niels Vandenberg would say. Sunday morning yamas, charades. Sounds like. Loose hammerheads are irritable. They fly off the handle. Haha, tish. See you later, Curtis. Thank you very much for checking in. Hopefully you didn't mind listening to me waffle on. On the subject of hammer handling, so this is a Japanese horimono style hammer handle, and this was wedged in a slightly more unique way in that the wedge slot wasn't cut. It was friction fitted so that it was very tight, and then a brass wedge was just driven in from the top, and that basically forced those wood particles to compress under the force of that brass, and that's it's a very solid way to mount things. I don't do it on big hammers because it takes a lot of force to drive a big wedge in, and the problem with that is you end up cracking down the center of the handle. But for these small hammers where the eyes are quite small, it holds on pretty well. So it's a really good way to do it. Sounds like asshole indeed. Good morning, my 2 favorite live streamers. Hello, Metal Man. How you going? Yamez says hi too. You just can't hear him. He's screaming from the void. I'm curious about split-styled handles. I'm not familiar. Yeah, if you could pull up a photo, that'd be good. Right. Okay. Yeah, Yamez is looking up a photo for me because I actually haven't heard. I definitely haven't used one, so I wouldn't be able to tell you if there are any benefits. Yeah, I mean, leaving them flat on a non-combustible surface is going to be the best way to dry them out if you really want to dry them out. I find that once I've used a rag for BLO, it hardens up and then it gets crusty and I just can't use it for anything again, so I just chuck it in the forge. I'm not that hung up. I have a box full of rags, a huge box full of rags. Yamez, is this related to last night's issues? Not related to the last night's issues. Apparently, the little blue pill worked. It took him a while to get that one. If you wouldn't ask someone for a... See you, blueberries. Thank you very much for checking in. Okay. No worries, Metal. Glad you enjoyed it. Well, I'll have to look it up later. I have ammo. Okay. Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, no, please don't do that, Ben. Please don't. I know you can, but don't. I know he corrected himself, but I just want to pretend he didn't. Hey, Shamrock, how you going? Oh, Shamrock, I have. Where is it? I have it here somewhere. I have your stickers. I got your stickers. Yes, we know. That's why the big sign on the screen that says Yamez has audio issues. No one can hear Yamez because in the void of the internet, no one can hear you scream. That's exactly right, Dan. All right. So yeah. Hey, Jared, how you going, mate? But yeah. So when it comes to split handles, I have no thoughts or feelings because I have never used them. I have never even heard of them or seen them. So I think I may have seen a photo, like the way that Yamez described it to me, being split down the middle all the way to a hole, which is then filled with rubber to create some form of shock absorption. Sounds good. I haven't really noticed that issue. So yeah, it sounds like a lot of work for nothing, as Young has just said. So yeah, basically, I would nah. Well, if it was if it was out 2 years ago and it hasn't really caught on since then, like it hasn't caught on to the point that I haven't heard about it, that then I doubt that it's a massive change in ability. So I don't think it would be worth it. It sounds like a lot of work. Um, 2 weeks till springtime. Cool. Wesley, just popping in to say, hey, hello. Sorry, hopefully I got to you before you left. Thank you very much for dropping in. Morning, Wilkins. How are we going? Or evening, as it is for me. You have your last Valentine's Day hammer to finish up. Fair enough. How would you heat treat cable Damascus? Well, that would depend on whether or not your cable Damascus was actually heat treatable. My suggestion: Cable Damascus is an unknown steel, so anyone who's seen my heat treating series on my YouTube channel, if you go to the playlists, there's a playlist for heat treating, and it goes into great amounts of depth about testing, heat treating, and all that kind of stuff. It is actually now morning. Matt has corrected me. It is 1 past 12, so it is correct. Morning. It's morning for everyone. Well, actually, it'll be afternoon for some of the Americans now. But anyway, so when it comes to making cable Damascus, I would suggest making more than you need, cutting off a small section, and heat treat testing that. But failing that, if you really want to just kind of go for it, use the same heat treat that you would use for any other high carbon steel. So, you know, like your 1084 and stuff like that, 1550 Fahrenheit, and then quench into, I would probably suggest a fast speed oil. If you don't have fast speed oil, obviously you can go for canola oil and stuff like that. You're kind of throwing a coin in the air as whether or not you're going to get hardening. I've had cable Damascus that just refused to harden. I've also had cable Damascus that tended to, harden pretty well. So it is really a shit fight as to whether or not you actually get a decent result. Anyone who tells you that you can do this for cable Damascus and it will work is lying to you, because not all cable is made the same. It's much like rebar or railroad spikes. It's hit and miss. Some of them harden, some of them don't. Test it, and then you will make it happen. But yeah, worst case scenario, best solution is go for the standard heat treating procedure, which is 1550 after you've done 3 normalization cycles of step down cycles, and then heat treat in at least a high speed oil. You could probably go into water, although you risk exploding your welds if your welds aren't great. Or you could do what Boar just suggested, which is what I do when I make cable Damascus, and I actually have a cable Damascus integral ship's knife sitting over there somewhere, which is sandmite it around a hardenable steel. So I've got a 52100 core. Gee, thanks, Yamas. I got a 52100 core. 52100 core cable Damascus sandmite. So yeah, sandmiting your cable is a good way to go. My cable's all the same, and it's about 1045-ish. Yeah, so 1045 wouldn't make a decent knife, but will harden somewhat. And this is why I tend to, say, sandmite if you're going to make a cable Damascus knife, because sandmite, at least you guarantee that you're going to have a hardenable steel for the edge. But yeah, you can make it into a cool letter opener. Totally got the sign language. All right. Fair enough. The baby shark, of course. Yeah. Yeah. Hey Alexa, play Baby Shark. For everyone who's listening, they just think that I came up with that on my own because they can't hear you. So, are you closing this out, or is that why everyone's telling me goodbye? Yeah, well, if you guys want to continue to listen to me, I'm happy to keep going. Yamez is, happy to keep going silently in the background. I'm sure he's enjoying this. I don't know about that. You hate me now, Ben? Oh well. One more to the list. Tempted to slap some 52100 into some 1095, make a blade and etch it. Well, you won't find that there'll be too much contrast between the two. You may find that the 52100 etches slightly lighter than your 1095 because of the chromium content, but there's not a lot of free chromium in 52100, so they'll etch about equally. Be good for a low contrast Damascus, but then you've had the issue of 52100 and 1095's heat treat cycles are completely different. So it will tear itself apart. That's one of the big problems. 52100 doesn't work well in Damascus. It can, but it doesn't. Well, it doesn't normally. Your Alexa just responded, I'm terribly sorry. Alexa, maximum volume. Alexa, play Baby Shark. Now, there's a trick for everyone. If you ever want to get someone really angry, you'd say Alexa maximum volume first because they play so loud that they can't hear the next command to shut off. I know. I'm a terrible person. This is what you get for inviting me on as a host. Oh god. Anyway, you worry for Yama's safety. How will we know he's having a seizure versus signing? Well, 6 of one, half dozen of the other. I'll keep talking either way. Anyway, see you later, James. Sorry, I missed you goodbye. I was too busy giving Yamez shit. Uh, you glad you listened through headphones? That's probably a good idea. You unplugged it. Yeah, fair enough. 5200 and a spike knife, Dunkinator. That would be etch better. Well, yeah, I mean, it would etch better. how would F33 etch? Hmm. That's interesting because, like, the thing I have is that I haven't played with A33. It's really hard to get a hold of over here in Australia. Yeah, it's really yeah. I would love to. I love playing with new steels. I'm always playing with new steels, but yeah, it's one of those things where A33 is something I've played with, and I'm not familiar with its chemical composition. Like, I'd have to look it up. Um, and so so I'm not sure that how it would go. Like, the big thing is that the chemical composition will also affect its forge weldability. I haven't seen many people doing forge welded A33. See you later, Michael. Um, so it's one of those things where I'm like, whether or not would be weldable. Um, because it's like S7 and H13 are almost completely unforge weldable. They can be forge welded. I'm not going to say that they're not forge weldable, but they're incredibly difficult. It's the same with A2. It's incredibly difficult to forge weld A2 because it's an air hardening steel. And they tend to be high red hardness, which means that it makes it really difficult to get it to stick to other things. And then when you do get it to stick to other things, it doesn't move while everything else does. So it's really annoying. Um, so yeah, I couldn't give you an answer as to whether or not A33 would etch differently to 4140. 4140 etches quite bright because it's high chromium. It's a chromoly steel, and because it's low carbon. Um, yeah, it's one of the things that I know of. Use a chunk of it for a hammer face and it tinked while in the quench. Isn't A33 a water quenching steel though? Yeah, it's like a quench and leave. Okay. Yeah. Right. Oh wow. Okay, so yeah, basically Yames was just see you later, Yames. See you later, Ben. Sorry, Yames. I'm still not saying goodbye to you yet. It could also be a heat differential. If there's like a cold spot and a hot spot, you can get warping inside the material, which makes it want to crack. That's why even heat is incredibly important. Um, would someone at Atlanta know the forge weldability of A33? Potentially. Um, yeah, so whether or not it was in water, I'm not sure that it was the Atlantic 33 that caused it to tank. And a lot of steels will tink in water, 1075 S7 H13. H13 cracks if you glance at it near water. It's terrible stuff for that. Like, I accidentally quenched H13 in water, and I ended up with a whole bunch of linear cracks I could never get rid of. Hamon question: what do you do for keep the vinegar and lemon juice from running to the other side of the knife? I tried blue tape and it still leached through. Why are you trying to keep it from one side or the other? I treat both sides at the same time. See you later, metal man. Yeah, no, I do the moan on both sides simultaneously. And obviously I'm doing the vinegar, and then I'm polishing, and then I'm doing the lemon juice, and I'm polishing, and I'm doing the vinegar and polishing, and so on and so forth. I normally do 5 cycles, so I'll do vinegar, lemon juice, for 5 times, and then I'll polish it all back, and so on and so forth. And I'm using a very, very, very fine polish to do that. See you later, Ken. Metal man. Bye-bye. Yeah, so as far as, no, don't do one side at a time, because you'll never be able to get one side done and not have the other one get ruined, or vice versa. So yeah, do both sides. I can understand why you would want to try and do one side at a time, but yeah, no, just do both sides. But yeah, so no, this is a Hamon question. Yeah, no, Ignis asked a question about making Hamons. When it comes to Atlantic 33 and forge weldability and stuff like that, it's like H13, as I said. I don't know whether it's forge weldable, and even if it is, I'm not sure how it would act. Right. Yes, naval seals, yeah. So apparently Atlantic is very, very secretive with the composition of Atlantic 33. So who knows what's in it? So the proprietary nature of that means that they're probably not going to release the full chemical composition, and that means that it's a crapshoot as to what. Yeah, exactly, and exactly, and never let anyone tell you that something can't be done. Even if I say it can't be done, I try not to say that kind of thing, but I slip up sometimes. Don't let people tell you that it can't be done. Try it out. Like, there are people for years that told me that 5160 cannot be forge welded to anything, and I've made it forge weld to things. It's a pain in the butt. Yeah, it's really hard, but it can be done. So it's one of those things. So at the end of the day, only Sith steal in absolutes. That's correct. Grey Jedi all the way. As the great Mikhail Kalashnikov said, it's easy to make something complex. It's difficult to make something simple. That is true. It's also difficult to, if you can't explain something simply to someone, you don't understand it well enough. Mm. Yeah, so yeah, its weldability with mechanical, like, or electrical welding, doesn't necessarily mean it's forge weldable or easily forge welded. Like, you can mechanically weld or electrically weld stainless, but forge welding stainless in an oxygen rich environment, you get good luck. Call you Darth Hammer. Fair enough. Why vinegar and lemon versus ferric chloride? Good question. Ferric chloride is incredibly aggressive, even in its very dilute form, and it attacks the surface in a way that is very even in its attack. So you end up with a very matte attitude from ferric chloride. It's very hard to get a polished hamon. Now, you can bring out a good hamon with ferric chloride. You can get some really good results for like a really good high contrast hamon if you want that really poppy, really standout hamon. You can get that out of ferric chloride. But if you want the more traditional polished hamon that you see on katana and stuff like that, then the vinegar and lemon juice, the vinegar will bring out the darkness of the background, and the lemon juice actually brings out the whiteness of the hamon line itself, the ashy. So it's a kind of a horses for courses kind of thing. $5 super chat from Wilkins Welding. I got approval to buy a new anvil from the wife, thinking about a TFS Smithy special, 200 pound that is made of ductile iron. Is it going to hold up like steel? No. just straight up answer. See you later, Matt. Have a good night, mate. Will it hold up like steel? If it's made of ductile iron, no, it won't. It's better than cast iron, 100%. Yama has just said it's better than cast iron. Definitely, cast iron will chip, will fragment, will crumble. Ductile iron won't. It will just mash. Now, the thing is that it doesn't need to hold up like steel. The big problem that you have is that over time, it's going to build up more dings and surface scars and all that kind of stuff than a hardened anvil. So yeah, I mean, it doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad anvil. It just means that you're going to end up with more surface deformation than with a steel-faced anvil. What are they asking? Oh Jesus, no, don't. Yeah, don't bother. You know, that price, get a smaller, better anvil. I mean, 200 pounds is what my new anvil weighs. My old anvil before that was 88 pounds, and that was more than enough for most of the stuff that I need. Like the 80 kilo anvil that I've got now, which is like 176 pounds, that's pretty much as big as an anvil as I'm ever gonna need for all of my work. And you've seen some of the forging that I've done. Maybe you haven't, but a lot of people here have. I can swing a hammer pretty hard, but the big thing for me is that if you're gonna spend that much money on a 200 pound anvil, it better be steel faced. Yeah, no. See, that's low. Like 48 and 50 Rockwell is pretty bad for a. Yeah, so okay, so the O'Dwyer factory, the O'Dwyer company that sells the old yellow anvil that I bought, used to advertise. They used to make their anvils out of mild steel for farriers, with the advantage them talking about it, the advantage of a softer anvil being less ringy because it doesn't ring as much, because the higher the hardness, the higher the pitch of the ring, which is why you can actually tell some high carbon steels from mild steel. If you have a similar sized piece of mild steel and high carbon, you can drop them on the ground, one will ring higher than the other. um, I would definitely suggest going for something that's going to stand up to a bit more abuse. There are a number of decent anvil companies out there that sell some pretty good anvils. Holland, I've heard, is some good stuff. William Barnhart has been getting orders of steel of anvils. I think he's sold out at the moment, but I think he's getting another order, and he's getting this anvils from the same place as Bryn, who's a friend of mine here in Australia, and he sells some amazing anvils, so definitely worth looking at. But yeah, don't bother buying a ductile iron anvil at that price. Just don't. Some people, yeah, they're just trying to rip you off. It's just to save money in the for manufacture. Holland is great. I have a 260 pound double horn. Yeah, perfect. Even if it means spending a little bit more money and you want that really big anvil, get an anvil that's going to hold up to that kind of thing. The big thing is, I've always said that you don't need a super strong, super hard anvil and all that kind of stuff. You can forge on a block of mild steel. My thing is, if you're going to spend that money, spend the money on something that's going to last you a lifetime. Yes, ductile irons anvils are perfectly usable. They do wear a bit more than steel. Correct, James. This is not what I'm talking about. Like, I'm not saying that it's not a usable anvil. It's just that if you're going to spend the money, it's not worth it if there are comparable high carbon heat treated steel anvils that are actually going to last a bit longer. The deformation over time is going to detract from your work in a lot of cases. Are old files good steel for mounds? Sometimes. It depends on the file. It depends on the manufacturer of the file. It depends on, that kind of thing. So at the end of the day, you've got to end up with a test. You've got to do testing. But I will say that like 9 times out of 10, yes, most file steels will be decent Hamon steels. A36 is mild steel. That's correct. That is the definition. Hey Bash, how you going? Do you ascribe to the ball bearing drop test to look at anvil hardness? I mean, it will tell you the face. It'll tell you the surface hardness, right? It'll tell you somewhat of what's going on at the surface. Yeah, he was looking at A33. That's correct. Yeah. That's all right. That's all good, Eric. We understand. The 190-pound Holland anvil is $1,300. Well, there you go. It's about the same price as the other one you were looking at. It's only 10 pounds lighter, and apparently it's going to hold up a little bit better. I haven't used Holland anvils, so I can't tell you. But I think the Holland Anvil Company makes the anvils at the same place that my friend Bryn does. So if they do, it's good. Cross palm anvils, nice. Yeah, that'd be cool. Anyway, the question about the dropping a ball bearing on things, it doesn't tell you too much about the anvil hardness. All it'll tell you is that it's reflexivity. I haven't got a ball bearing to test on mine, but I will at some point do a test on that. I honestly don't bother testing the anvil hardness except to tap my hammer on it. Normally, if I can hit my hammer on it and try and force the hammer into the anvil face, and it continues to rebound no matter what I do to force it down, that normally means it's got pretty decent rebound. I mean, I'm not Rockwell testing things. I know that they test them at the factory. That my anvil that I've got is a minimum of 58 Rockwell across the face, because they test at multiple locations across the face to make sure that they're getting a minimum of 58 Rockwell, which is very high for an anvil. House are a really good anvil company, and if I could get any other anvil in the world, I would get a House or a House. And they're like 60 Rockwell standard. All right, Ignis, thank you very much for hanging out with us. Thank you very much for the questions. I always appreciate questions because it gives me something to talk about. And I love talking, as people have figured it out. If Yames, 40 people are watching, but only one is really listening to you, and not even me. Because he's not talking most of the time. He's barely talking. He's trying not to distract me, which is very nice. Hey, good morning, Corey. How you going? Nimbus, again, another anvil company that I haven't had the opportunity to bounce a hammer off, but I have heard good things. But that being said, you can get most of what you want done on a Harbor Freight cheapie. Like, at the end of the day, if you're going to invest a large amount of money, if you're going to invest over $1,000 in an anvil, you want to invest in something that's going to last you forever, because you don't want to have to worry about buying a new anvil. Yeah, you don't want to have to worry about buying a new anvil later in life. Whereas if you're trying to just beat steel on something, then pretty much anything that's, a decent block of steel is going to do. Harbor Freight, Akiao, those ones from Amazon that Roy was giving away, they're perfect for that kind of work. But that's the thing. That's, at the end of the day, you use what you can get a hold of. Piece of railroad track. Hey, Boar, how you going? Got a Holland Anvil 2 weeks ago. Yeah, everyone's buggering off, so we're gonna have to shut down the stream. People are sick of listening to me. All right. Has anyone got a topic in the chat? Anyone got a question in the chat before we wrap up? Yeah, anvils themselves. Takes 3 people to move my ass, so it's 10:45. Well, that's good enough. Yeah. Don't say that, guys. He'll never invite me back. Gonna try and make a French cross bean. Excellent. More people should make French cross beans. French cross bean army. Come up with another topic, guys, so I have something to talk about. Otherwise, we're gonna have to wrap it up. What did I miss? Just run back through all of it. Oh god, that's a long conversation, Dylan. You're just gonna have to watch it on the VOD. But yeah, I'm a big fan of French cross beans. If you can't tell, and mine is very French. The fleur de lis. How about chimneys for a coal forge? Yeah. So flues, chimney flues, and hoods and stuff like that are great. Um, I've used both passive and active chimneys. Um, so a passive chimney works on heat convection. So you basically have a hood that's over the top of the heat, and the heat convection of that hot air rising through the chimney is actually creating the draw. And that's great if you're running a pretty hot fire. It's really good for charcoal because charcoal creates a lot of ambient heat, which means that it's constantly creating that updraft. And even when you shut the heat off, even when you shut the air off, you still got that nice convection going on. Whereas an active flue is one that has a drawing fan in it, which is ones you normally see like side draft, where the pot will be here, and then you'll have the hole for the flue off to the side and just sucking the smoke out. Could be slight air hardening. Could also be chromium separating out and carbidizing itself. 4140 will harden in sections because it's so high chromium. Chromium is a carbide segregating monster. And so what will end up happening is it'll try and grab whatever carbon it can, although there's fairly low carbon in 4140. Basically, you'll end up having a small segment of carbides clustered around the chromium atoms, and that's why you end up having problems drilling it and stuff like that, which is a massive pain in the butt. I know all about that. It's the same problem that you get with spring steel. Spring steel will do the same thing. O1's really bad for it because vanadium really likes to segregate carbides. But anyway, 52 Rockwell, yeah. So that sounds more like air hardening than carbidizing. But yeah, that's one of the other reasons. If it's cold enough outside, it will literally cool fast enough to harden. If you guys have got snow and stuff, if the air is quite cold, it will air harden steel. Anyway, so I was talking about flues, draft hoods, and stuff like that. Wood heater pipe caps aren't tall enough to act as proper draft hood caps. Probably, yeah, no. Sounds about right. Is You're right, yeah. So Yamez is saying that one of the easiest ways to get an easy flue built for your forge is to get some 6-inch HVAC tubing, which sounds like a really good idea. Yeah. So yeah. So ideally, like I was thinking it, the HVAC. The bigger the diameter, the better, because you're going to get better draw, especially if you're using heat convected. If you're going to build an active drawer, use a bathroom fan. You know those inset bathroom fans? They're really cheap. They're really easy to wire up. And put it on the outside. Put it on the put it on the very end where the smoke is going to be the coolest, because otherwise you'll burn out the motor real fast. So yeah, I would suggest something like, and Yamez was saying 12-inch is good, 10-inch is great, 8-inch is probably the smallest he would go. 6-inch can work, but you'll need active draw. I'd say anywhere between 6 and 10, you'll need active draw. 12 is probably good for a natural convection. You could make natural convection work with 6, but it'd be real pain in the ass, and you'd need a severely sloped hood. The big thing is that 14 inches is great. 14 inches is fantastic. So you can get away with a less sloped hood the more draft you have, the more draw you have. So if you've got a naturally convected hood, you need fairly sloped sides. If you've got a mechanical draw, if you've got an active draw, then you can have literally 90-degree sides. You'll notice if you watch the That Works channel with Ilya and Matt from originally from Man at Arms, they built a giant charcoal forge, and the hood is quite steeply shouldered, and it covers the entire length of the forge. And the reason for that is because it is a naturally drafted forge, and so that's one of the things that you've got to look out for. Your hood you're making out of copper, the rest will be black piper at 8 to 10 inches. Yeah, that'll work fine, because realistically you're not going to be getting it that hot. It'll get warm, but it's not going to get stupid hot. Hmm. Yeah. Right. So Yamez was saying that he's had conversations with JLP Services. She does some amazing work. Go check her out. But they were talking about galvanized tubing and stuff like that being used in forge flues, and it is usable as long as it's on the outside of the forge, like where it's not getting hot enough to off gas. The direct hood, I wouldn't necessarily use galvanized, but you probably could get away with it. But yeah, you don't want to use it anywhere where it's going to be in direct contact with heat, obviously, because you don't want to get heavy metal poisoning. None of us do. And a really good point is that if you want to create a naturally drafted flue, the sections of the chimney that are outside of the workshop, paint them black so that they soak up more heat, so that they create more convection. Um, yeah, so 8 inch is probably too small, and 10 inch is probably just right for natural draft. Like I said, if you're doing natural draft, you want 12-inch, 14-inch, 16-inch, something like that. Yeah, so the smaller the diameter, the higher you can build the chimney, and the higher you build the chimney, the faster the drawer is going to be uh, because of the heat buildup inside there. So it's kind of a trade-off. All right, Robert, thank you very much. It's basically that if you can't get it in girth, you have to get it in length, which is exactly true. The smaller the flue, the longer your chimney. Um, could I put a 45 in it and go through the wall instead of the roof? Yeah, absolutely. As long as it's running at an upward angle, outward, then yeah, it's still creating a draft. You may have problems with your initial draw, and you might want to do what Shamrock does, which is the dryer venturi, hair dryer venturi, which is just to blow start your chimney, basically. So you give it some artificial convection before you finally it naturally starts convecting with the heat. So yeah, that'll just be for startup though, obviously. 290s. You shouldn't do more than a 30 degree, from what I've heard. I mean, 45 would probably be okay. I mean, the higher the angle, the better, because obviously you're trying to create vertical convection. And so any angle, any bend is going to interrupt that convection and try and redistribute the force. It's trying to redistribute that energy. So basically, if you've got a dead straight, then that's going to be your best because it's got the path of least resistance straight up. Um, any bend is going to slow the airflow down because it has to hit that wall and go up. So the sharper the bend, the worse. So, you can get away with 45, 30 would be better, 20 would be better, 10 would be better, and dead straight up would be the best. But you have to make do with what you've got. Yeah, exactly, Shamrock. You're blow starting the forge, getting that convection to work, and then basically after that you're good. Would it work better with 12 to 14-inch pipe? Yes. So basically, like we said, you can have a 12-inch tube and go a little bit shorter in height, or you have to get a larger one. And so naturally convected, you want 12 to 14-inch. Perfect. Yeah. So regardless the size of your pipe, you want it above the roof line of your, at least at, but normally above the roof line of your forge. And like I said, the higher you go, the more convection you're going to have because you're building a natural wind tunnel, like a Dakota file hole, basically. Similar. Yeah. Yeah. So, and basically, what Yamez was saying is that because he's painted all of his outside parts of the chimney black, because they're containing heat or they're getting heat from the sun, it's creating a natural convection because hot air rises, so it's rising through that tube. That's also an important thing that Donut just said is that just as the volume of the pipe shouldn't be restricted with a smaller volume of outlet at the cap, you want to make sure that your uh, tube, your chimney, is the same the whole way up. You don't want it to be smaller at the top. Um, yeah, you don't want to constrict the airflow at all. You want to make the airflow as large as possible because you're talking about weight of air rather than speed. You want weight because you're trying to lift smoke particles as well. You got to remember that because smoke particles naturally want to fall. They don't naturally want to rise. It's the heat that carries them up. You rolled 666. Oh no, that's not good. Rolled an 18. Thank you very much, Wayne. Thank you very much for hanging out. Appreciate seeing you. Yeah, and yeah, I had great fun, talking about this stuff. Thank you very much, Yamez. Everyone should thank Yamez at the moment. Give him a nice round of applause in the chat for letting me jabber on for 2 hours, and he was very patiently running the whole show behind the scenes, making sure that nothing went wrong, except his audio, you know. But that's beyond his control, apparently. Don't thank me. Thank Yamez. I just sat here and talked at you for 2 hours. Thank him for his sign language interpretations and the interpretive dance that was going on in the background that I did notice. As we were walking like an Egyptian there for a bit. Well, yeah, 90-degree bends. That's right. Well, Yamez would like to wish you a happy Sunday. So would I. For those of you in the southern hemisphere and in my area of the world, uh, yeah, happy Monday. You all stay safe out there. Thank you very much for watching. Hope you enjoyed me being here. Maybe I'll be back. Who knows? Yamez may invite me back one day. Maybe. He might find that I talk too much. But anyway, yeah, I appreciate the opportunity to come on here. I'm always happy to talk to you guys. You know that. And make sure you're watching Yamaz's videos 'cause he's making some great content recently. I've unfortunately not been able to watch a lot of it, but I'm trying to catch up desperately. And if you want to catch more of me, then you can check my new video out, which will be on Wednesday, and my live streams are on Saturdays, Fridays for you guys in America, Friday night. It's Saturday, 9 a.m. Australian Western Standard Time. So thank you so much. Again, just going to pop that auction in at the end. I hate doing this, but anyway, yeah, it's a little bit of self promo. I am holding an auction for a piece of my work. It's a Japanese fusion buoy that I made. Oh, here it is. This Japanese fusion buoy. I'm holding an auction to try and finance the repair to my car that was broken into today. So thank you very much for that. And if you're interested in winning this in an auction, then go check out my Instagram. It'll be up tomorrow. Thanks again for that, Yamez. Oh, and Yamez was nice enough to chuck a link for my channel in the chat if you guys are interested, and if you guys haven't already checked me out. Not that you're required to. If you haven't already subscribed to Yamez, you should be, and I don't know why you're not. The man is a living legend, and he's the one that keeps this kind of community stuff going. I'm terrible at it, so it's without Yamez, this kind of stuff wouldn't be happening. And despite the fact that I'm here and I'm talking to you, it's Yamez that's doing all the work. So make sure you're appreciating him, and maybe you'll see me back here on a Sunday, or maybe you'll see me elsewhere. All right, cheerio, guys.